This is the EnT podcast, conversations about education, technology, and culture, with Dr. Doug Reed and Dr. Matt Stranick. Thank you for joining us.
My name is Dr. Doug Reed, and I am located in Abagway, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people.
My name is Dr. Matthew Stranick, and I am located in Scoodic, in the traditional and unceded territory of the Passamaquoddy people. Well, hey everyone, welcome to, I am completely surprised and shocked and tickled beyond all comprehension, if you want to know, to be speaking to episode 100. We finally made it. Episode 100 of the EnT podcast. I am Matt Stranick. This is Dr. Doug Reed. And man, it's the triple digits. I'm stoked, Doug. Highly stoked. I didn't think I was going to feel any different, and I don't actually know if I do, but it's a milestone. It really is. And boy, oh boy, that's my hot take at the beginning of the episode. Doug, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling very well. I'm looking forward to, I don't know if you ever listened to the BBC In Our Times podcast.
Nope.
And when they got to 1,000, the host stopped saying from our hundreds of episodes to one of more than 1,000 episodes. So now we'll be able to say one of more than 100 episodes. I just thought that was kind of cute. So I was enjoying that.
Well, we are into typically an hour long for each of these. That's been one kind of mainstay of the format. So if you think about it, some of them even go a bit longer, right? So we're probably 125 episode or hours of programming altogether. If you think about it in those terms, it's pretty significant, pretty humbling in its own way, I suppose. We've been at this since November of 2023. September? Okay.
We did one before Hurricane Fiona, and then 3 weeks after Hurricane Fiona, we did another one, which was in October.
Okay, there we go. Well, the months go by, and so do the weeks, and so do the days, but at any point, it's the fourth month. It's still the fourth month of 2026, so 9 months. It's been basically 3.5 years we've been at this. 100 episodes in 3.5 years, 4 seasons. Basically, even though we typically take 3 to 4 months off in the summer, we're averaging about one episode every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Really, which to my mind, considering the lengthy gaps and the lengthy, it's never been once every 2 weeks. It's not like we ever schedule it out like that, but it's a pretty good average, I think, on the whole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. And to be honest, I love the fact that we're recording on Anzac Day. In Australia, this is their version of Remembrance Day. It's the day that the Australian New Zealand Army Corps started their fight in Gallipoli.
Whoa.
So it is a very big deal there. So to all my Antipodean friends, I hope you're having a good day.
4/25/26. How about that?
Yeah. So I would like to talk about landmarks in education. And this is a hodgepodge of random stuff that all circled around celebration and landmarks. I was trying to use milestones. Do you know how many research articles have the word milestones in it?
A cajillion and a half, roughly speaking, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, those darn special ed people. Or whatever label you want to hang on them. They use milestones all over the place, and then it kind of spread like a fungus everywhere else. So it's one of those things.
It spread like a fungus, not unlike this podcast, if you want to know, folks.
Yes, very true, very true. I'm going to write that down. And I'm wondering, before we get started with some of the literature, I added a couple of graphics.
I've noticed that there's more graphics in here than typically would be in a given set of notes. And I've looked at them kind of on a cursory kind of manner just because I haven't had a chance to really get into the document prior to this morning. A lot of interesting stuff there, a lot of compelling stuff there, got to say. And I'm looking forward to our typical segment towards the end of the show when we single some of that out. But if we want to preview that a bit in advance, Doug, I'd be happy to hear what you're thinking.
Sure. Normally, what I do is I include images into my notes that you put into the webpage that are my digital clutter.
Yes.
It is rare that I create an image for the podcast. I think I did it with creating the logo back in the day. And I think on the 90th episode, I created like that mock-up comic book cover. And now what I did is I put together 200th episode images with the Ed Non-Tech logo on a record player and having it go
Which
around.
is awesome, by the way.
Thanks. That took me some time. There was a little bit of stress and skill involved with, because I only had so many chances before AI said, you run out for today, do it tomorrow. So I needed to get very precise.
Which AI package were you using for that, for your prompt engineering, as it were?
I messed around with a couple, but this ended up getting pumped out through ChatGPT because I have the free account, so I just keep puttering at it.
Gotcha.
And it has gotten so much better at image creation in the last 2 years. Like, it is leaps and bounds better, which is both good and scary. But I guess that's what we do. Right? The Ed Non-Tech people.
I'm deeply impressed with this graphic at the top of the document. I got to say, that really shows a lot of iteration, a lot of trying out different combinations of words, I would wager, to get that just so.
Yeah.
It's logos within logo. It's very meta. And the show tends to be pretty meta. So it's entirely appropriate. It harkens to the retro anachronistic tech that we tend to favor within the scope of this show, both ironically and as kind of a cognitive device. It's got like a lot going on. It's pretty layered, it's pretty nuanced, and it harkens to the musical framing which we try and bring towards the show because music's a huge thing for both of us, right? So
speaking of music being a big thing, I have Ed being the 100th episode, 100th anniversary.
I'm glad that some of those still exist out there. I kind of forgot about that whole era of at one point, folks, I was involved in a sort of parallel podcasting endeavor, which was really good for this show because it kind of helped me duplicate some of the format. It helped me enhance and try some things out kind of parallel to this with my friend Dan Hayward. it started around the same time. It started a couple months later. It started properly in the winter of 2023. We stopped doing it about a year ago. So we got really 2.5 years worth of episodes out of it, almost three, depending on how you look at it. And at one point, before I moved to New Brunswick the first time, I was in BC, and we decided, Dan and I, to make some T-shirts. We decided to do Today New Brunswick, Tomorrow the World T-shirts. If you can imagine, I did off about 25 of them. They had things on the front and the back. Sent a lot of them out in the mail with some other kind of ephemera. Sent them out, and it was a completely it sucked money out of me. It cost around in the low hundreds of dollars to do that, but it was something which gave me an incredible amount of joy. And I'm deeply stoked that, Doug, I guess I knew at the back of my mind that you got one of those. And it's really cool that you're still wearing it, at least for the purposes of this show.
Oh, yeah, no, it's great. I just thought that this was a celebratory day. So it was a gift. And normally on celebratory days, like, you'd have a cake with candles and stuff, and I could not figure out how to mail you a cake, and I didn't want to go there. So I figured I'd do that. This was as close to cake as possible because it was a gift to me. So,
well, that's awesome. And just kind of as far as it goes, it's not directly related, but it's not mutually exclusive either. There's actually in Fredericton tomorrow, Fredericton, New Brunswick, it's going on all weekend. It started yesterday night, a tattoo expo at the Capitol Exhibition Grounds. And my girlfriend, who I'm living with now here in St. Stephen, she located it on Facebook, and she's like, we actually got to go to that because we got matching tattoos right the same weekend that I moved in a couple months ago, and just little ones, right? I've got like 30 tattoos almost. She got her second one when I moved in, but she's like, we're going to go. And so I've commissioned my son Kai, who lives in BC, to do another couple of designs so that I can take it to the tattoo expo, because he's done 5 designs for me already. And one of the ones that I asked him to do I was like, what would a record player look like for you? Would you want to do a picture of a record player? And what he did, he's a 14-year-old kid, he's very talented, and he kind of did this sort of basic sort of drawing, just kind of a sketch of this sort of record player, this unit, it was it looked fine, but then beside it, he drew this version of a record player that had turned into a robot. And it had this full robot transformer-like body and kind of even almost a slightly malevolent expression on its face. And I'm like, okay, the record player robot is what I am going to get when I'm at this event tomorrow, because we're going to go tomorrow, my girlfriend and her daughter and I. And it's basically you pay $15 and they have tattoo artists from all over Atlantic Canada, outside of Atlantic Canada, and you can just walk up, and if they got availability, they'll just do one for you right there. So I've got 5 or 6. I'm always planning my next tattoos. I got like 5 or 6 kind of in mind. So one of them that I'm going to try and achieve is getting this little record player robot kind of dude that my kid drew for me. So again, somewhat in keeping with the spirit of the show, somewhat happening on the same time frame, right? Within 24 hours of it, as a matter of fact. So,
yeah, and over the last 4 seasons, we've talked about this before, and you've showed me other ones that he's designed for you.
That's right. I just feel like it's encouraging the young boys' talents, and even for me, I just think it looks cool. I figure in for a penny, in for a pound, and I just figure I've still got space on my arms, I've still got my chest, I've still got my shoulders, so I just like tattoos. They're cool for me. Not everybody goes for them, but I certainly do. So,
right on.
Yeah.
Right
So,
on.
all to say, Doug, that this is an amazingly cool, thoughtful image, which, folks, if you go to the website for the contextualizing blog post, you're definitely going to see this at the top of the image, the lead image for the show, for sure, within the notes. And is there anything you want to say before we get into the properly historical references that we're starting out with here, Doug?
Sure. Sure. I'll jump right into the literature from 1928.
Please do.
Jewett and Jewett, 50 years of science and engineering. And they had a quote which I thought tied nicely to what we've done here for our 100th episode. And their quote is, "We are making progress slowly in the school of experience."
Outstanding.
And
Love that.
I am pretty sure that over the last 4 seasons, we have fallen into every ditch you can fall into on how to make a podcast and how to grow an audience and stuff. So I just really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And in fact, including this very morning when I had a case of, why can't I get my microphone operating? I can hear Doug, I can see Doug, Doug can't hear me. Had to go through the restart my computer. That didn't fix it. Oh, I guess I got to go into the actual settings. Oh, it's muted. Why is it muted? I never do that. It had to be done like, it was wild. It was a good 15 minutes of messing around with the computer before this episode. Every time you do the thing, you learn something new. At least I do. I know you probably feel the same way, Doug. And that's one of the cool things about it, just in life generally. I think probably the category that we use for the episodes, because among the various data that Doug provides in these awesome Google Docs that frame the show, is he includes categories for searching and for future reference and to kind of metadata, right? And lifelong learning has shown up not every episode for the past year or two, but it's pretty frequent. It's probably the one, if you were to look, I would wager that is probably the category that showed up the most by a pretty significant margin over the past couple of years, for sure.
Yeah, that's very fair. That's very fair with the way my thinking has gone and how I've developed my understandings. So Jewett and Jewett also had another interesting comment. And they said by 1876, modern science had developed so far that the world was about ready to begin an extensive utilization of new knowledge it had produced. It's like, does that sound like it could fit perfectly into what's going on now and what's been going on for the last couple of years once you take out the 1876? So I think we're still
150 years later, things haven't changed that much, really.
Yeah, that's right. The growth curve is there. The growth curve is there. So I needed to just go back and do the old-timey one so that we could...
Well, as far as it goes, too, I appreciate the fact that this comes from the journal, the American Bar Association Journal, which I have to assume is to do with the law field, the legal profession. I am living with a lawyer in a lawyer's house, and she practices law out of her own law company, a one-person law company based in this house. And then 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, sometimes more, sometimes on the weekends, I'm working for a firm of lawyers doing legal assistant kind of stuff. And in fact, yesterday evening, I spent a good part of the evening from about 5:30 until 10:30 at an auction, a IWK auction here in St. Stephen for, it was a live auction and a pasta dinner in a church hall. And I was there at the behest of my lawyer boss, who maintains a pretty, she has about 4 or 5 offices that do a lot of business throughout Southwest New Brunswick. So it was her husband, who's also a lawyer at the firm, and a couple of other people who work for it was all work people, plus Laura, my girlfriend, and she's a lawyer. And so I'm immersed in the legal field lately. My mom's a lawyer too, but that's another story altogether. And so the Bar Association Journal, like, okay, it kind of it's in keeping with how things have been going for me lately, that would be somehow the first reference in the 100th episode.
And when you say you went to an IWK fundraiser, for people that don't live in the Maritimes, when I think of IWK, it's the Children's Hospital in Halifax.
Yes, thank you for that. That's right.
Yes, I spent a bunch of time there as a kid.
Did you?
Yeah,
I was not
when
aware
I
of
got
that.
burnt. Yeah, I spent most of my third year of life in that hospital after I ended up burned with scars and stuff. So,
Whoa.
yeah, one of those things.
They do amazing work for sure.
They
It's a
really do.
highly worthwhile cause, and it was a lot of fun too, actually.
Oh,
I've
I
never
bet.
actually participated in a live auction before or seen what that actually looks like. And it was just a lot of fun, right? It's a small town. It was a small town, but everybody was there. The place was completely sold out for tickets, and it was a church hall, a Catholic church hall, and it was really the most small town New Brunswick thing I could have possibly experienced, and I enjoyed it immensely, actually. And plus, going to a very, very worthy cause, the Children's Hospital in Halifax, a maritime Atlantic Canadian center, which has saved and helped tons, so many thousands of kids over its lifespan so far. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Very worthy cause. Very
yes,
worthy cause. Okay, I'm going to jump into some more educational technology stuff.
please do.
Rupert, Callinger, and Howard from 2010, Evaluating Educational Technologies, Historical Milestones. And I put a graphic in there that I thought you might appreciate.
Well, I appreciate it. It's huge. It looks like a technological application. It looks like a technological schematic. Part of me wants that to be an interactive where you can kind of punch in on the boxes with a little H5P interface and make the text a bit larger and
Yes.
magnify the text in there, just because I'm 48 years old. My eyesight is not what it used to be, but that being said, it looks cool as hell.
Yeah, I'm slightly older than you, and I have this on another screen that I've blown up to 250% just to see it. So just giving the listeners warnings, if you go take a look, it's going to be small. But that was the most, that's the best resolution I could
might
get.
use some WordPress tricks to potentially enhance that legibility just a tad. But nevertheless, folks, it's awesome and it's worth looking at. Besides the obvious overawe and visual wow factor, Doug, what else about this appealed to you?
The very first little bit of the graphic, 1923, the Division
Okay.
of Visual Instruction, the DVI, is established in response to new media tools, slides, and motion pictures. And I'd never heard of the DVI before. And I think it's awesome that slides and motion pictures were happening in 1923 that impacted education. So that's
Outstanding.
what I really love. And there's a bunch. It's all very Americanized. It's all kinds of that stuff. But I really like the DVI component. It's almost like nothing happened in educational technology outside of our southern neighbor. But we're used to it.
Well, the fact of it being that slides and motion pictures, you could pretty well easily switch that out with PowerPoint and internet reels or YouTube clips or other
Or TikTok.
kind of similar
or
media,
whatever.
right? So it's another case of how much things change and how much they remain the same kind of all at once, right?
And Ruberg et al. Have a nice quote. There are a large number of other recommendations suggesting that there is widespread hope that technology will improve many aspects of teaching and learning. And I love the widespread hope that technology will help improve stuff, which is why I needed to include it.
We remain with widespread hope. Otherwise, probably we wouldn't be doing this show, for instance, I have to think. And yeah, that's a really positive vibe on that, Doug.
Yeah, I know I can be a downer sometimes. So I'm actively trying to find positive stuff, because sometimes it's like, yeah, I know I can be a downer. I just have really good pattern recognition
I've never
skills.
once thought of you as being a downer, for the record, Doug, but that's my own opinion, subjective as it is.
I don't think we've been face to face in like 4 or 5 years. I really enjoy these, so that's one of those things. Anyway, maybe I'm just being too hard on myself. Whatever it is, maybe that just might be the.
We always tend to be more critical of ourselves than the way others would tend to see us. That being said, I am hoping to get over to Prince Edward Island for some vacation and other kinds of travel, at least for a few days, if not longer, sometime during the next 4 months over the summertime, if I can swing it. So
Cool.
maybe we'll be able to actually meet in person for the first time since we were both at Thompson Rivers University, right?
Yeah, pre-COVID lockdown.
It's been a while, and that actually speaks to this as when it first started out, somewhat of a post-COVID kind of response, right? It's still something that we're dealing with in the literature. It's still something that we deal with in practice. But if we're looking at 2023, the fall when this started, COVID was still within 5 years, right? It was still within just a few years. And we were still, I think, probably much more even than we are now, seeing a lot of these educators' response to COVID and educational technology response to COVID kind of citations in the journals, which we've referenced, which you've referenced variously, Doug, over these years. And now, I mean, I haven't worked in post-secondary for, it's coming up on, it's going to be a year pretty soon since my last position ended with post-secondary. Haven't really been involved directly in K to 12 in a whole lot of time either. So it feels though, kind of just in the wider society and the wider functioning of things, that COVID, that was, there's not really too much memory of it out there, it seems.
Well, there are things you don't want to remember, right? Like, let's
understandably, I suppose.
Yeah, there's definitely things I'm glad I don't have to deal with anymore. But I know how to wash my hands better now. Way better at hand washing than I was before. So
that's true. That's true. And so if we were to have a more, I guess, contemporaneous version of that rather schematic looking graphic from 2010, that would be, you could do almost a COVID-centric version of that same graphic, right?
Oh,
you could start in the 2019 or 2020 and kind of do immediately before and immediately after. That would be almost a worthwhile endeavor for a AI enhanced visualizer or flow chart or whatever. But then again, there's lots of things that would be cool. It doesn't mean we're going to do them, but like I say, that is an awful cool chart there, Doug.
I do enjoy it as well. It's for the listeners. Go to the website, take a look at it. It's very well done, and the graphic appeal worked really well. It looks like they had a graphic designer put it together. They made so many of the right choices, and that's why I like to highlight things that people do well, because that was well done. I want to jump to Pinsky, Manson, and Irby, 1998. How excellent teachers are made. Reflecting on the success to improve teaching. I really wanted this because one of their quotes was, "We are interested in the role reflection plays in the process of learning from successes. And I think that's what we've done over these 4 seasons. We've learned from our successes. Because we tried some stuff. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Whoop, moving on.
Definitely.
And there's a popular myth that argues good teachers are born, not made. Yet the premise of faculty development is that teachers can improve. So which is it? Are they born or are they made? Can it be a combination of both? And why are we doing faculty development? And I just love that play on words when people take a look at these cliches that get thrown out. And when you start to analyze the cliches, it's like, oh, what's actually going on there? What's happening? So I just enjoy the concepts.
It's interesting to me just because I almost never think of things in terms of sports, but for some reason when I read that, I'm thinking, well, not every hockey player is going to be Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews, right? That takes a certain amount of talent and genetic gifts and stuff going on in their lives well before they even picked up a hockey stick, even in their infant and early years, and a whole complex range of factors. So, yes, exceptional talent, for sure, genetic, perhaps gifts and inheritance that furthered that. But at the same time, hockey is the most popular sport in Canada, and thousands of people, if not more, if not millions of people play it around the world every year. And there's so much benefit from being involved in hockey for organized sports. So even if you look at like the rosters of minor league teams or adult beer league or high school level, and you can spin that out to any sport, you have to say that there's so like my kids, my son, he's outstanding at basketball. He's an outstanding high school regional basketball player, and he's probably one of the better in province of BC. I don't really think at this point, going into grade 12 next year, that he's going to end up playing in the NBA, but his life has been enriched in so many ways. And the fact that he took something that he wasn't very good at, but he cared about it a lot and improved significantly to the point that he stands out in his medium-sized, smaller town in British Columbia. And it's something that gives him pride. It's something that gives him purpose. So, yeah, I think if you look at it kind of in those terms with teaching, then yeah, I think born, not made. That's kind of a bit of a fallacy. That's something that might be easy to fall into.
Yeah, it's one of those cop-outs that I enjoy poking holes in to say, okay, let's get to the root of this. It's never as simple as people think it is. And I love the fact that they're saying, let's reflect. Because as educators, how often do we reflect? Every day? Right? It's many, many times a day, whatever that happens to be.
You got to rationalize what you're coming up against and what you're getting through, because there's so many factors which it's not ever just delivering the lesson. It's managing a group of people, sometimes young people, often people who are impressionable, people who are looking to you for guidance in the way that you carry yourself and the intangibles and being a part of the community in certain ways. And so if you don't stop and reflect, if you don't stop and sort of think about what you're doing and how you're doing it, you're going to get burned out, for one thing. And we have huge rates of attrition within the education field, huge rates of attrition.
Yeah.
And you got to give yourself that space to consolidate, reflect, and that way you can rationalize where you've been and plot a way forward in a good way so that you're bringing your best self to the situation and you're being good to yourself, so it's something that you can really appreciate. And I could go on, Doug. It seems like I'm on a bit of a tangent there, but
being good to yourself seems to be something that a lot of people struggle with. So I'm glad we, and by we, the royal we, you, mentioned it.
Well, and I'll just put in a digression here a bit, just to take it a little bit further. And I don't plan to go very far with this, but something that that's kind of cropped up for me just over the past month or two, probably even since the last time we did the show. I subscribe to a newsletter, a Fredericton Court newsletter, because I grew up in Fredericton. I'm working in the legal industry now, and there's a really good reporter who does Substack, and he covers Fredericton Court proceedings. I pay $9 a month to use it. It's pretty awesome, actually. The Fredericton Independent is by a respected journalist, and I believe in supporting local media in whatever way that I can. But one of the things that got me interested in it is because he did cover proceedings of somebody that I went to high school with. And he became a teacher, and he's in jail now for inappropriate interactions with a student while working at a school. And it was brought forward to the criminal proceedings, and that guy is officially in jail, and he's going to be there for a little while. It's pending sentencing. I'm not going to go any further in terms of identifying this person. You could probably Google it if you were interested, just based on what I said. But this is somebody that I knew from high school, that I knew from university. I wasn't super good friends with him at all. But we kind of hung out roughly around a similar cohort of people. And you go, okay, this guy's an educator now. He's a teacher. We know each other on Facebook. Oh, he's not on Facebook anymore. And then just a few months ago, it's like, okay, this is probably why, because he wasn't able to navigate his professional responsibility and his personal life in a way that was socially acceptable, and it ended up becoming a criminal matter, right? So again, just to think of the importance of reflecting, the importance of giving yourself space to grow, to giving yourself, because if you don't, then I mean, you're not going to. It's not like you're going to. It's just you're going to end up in a situation that's you're not working at your best potential, and that would just be a shame for all concerned, right? So,
yeah. And the working to potential and reflecting in space to grow works well with the Bottomley 2015 article, Podcasting, a decade in the life of the new audio medium. And this author has a quote that says, nearly as soon as it began, web and tech commentators were proclaiming that podcasting is dead. Yeah, podcasting never died. And we're evidence of that. We're 100 episodes in with the thousands of other podcasts that are out there floating around. So I think we're doing quite all right. I'm glad we've got to 100 so far.
Well, I am stoked for it because, I mean, as we've kind of talked about over the various episodes, this fulfills a lot of my urge to be creative, even above and beyond the educational aspect of it, right? Like I'm officially within a few weeks of being in my 20th year as some kind of educator. And right now, for the first time in 20 years, being an educator is not my primary thing. I've worked a few part-time things before that were outside of education at the very beginning of my career, but this is the first time where I've been involved in a full-time enterprise completely in a professional setting outside of being an educator. But I don't see it as being mutually exclusive either, right? I don't see it like, oh, well, I'm not practicing as an educator or teacher right now, therefore I have to remove myself from this enterprise. It's, in fact, going all the way back, folks, a lot of the reason that this episode or this podcast, this series began, at least for me, was because my tenure track term at Thompson Rivers University, where I used to work, wasn't renewed. I had applied, I was in renewal, I was unsuccessful, and I felt really that it was important to remain professionally and creatively viable in some kind of way. So to me, that's kind of where it started from. And Doug has his own origin story to go with this for sure. But I can't imagine this show not continuing on for as long as we're both interested in it. And from what I can tell, that interest is pretty strong in both of us. So
I would not be wearing a shiny set of clothes to celebrate the 100th anniversary if I wasn't interested in continuing.
absolutely.
In case you're wondering, this was part of a Halloween costume during COVID for what's that show? The Tiger King? Lion King? Tiger King.
What?
Whatever that
You
big
never
one was.
fail to impress me, my friend.
Yeah, I went as Joe. Was the guy's name Joe? I don't even remember.
The skeevy dude, didn't he have some kind of allegations against him after the show kind of ended?
Oh, yeah, yeah. But I'm pretty sure for me to go to Skeevy Dude, all I got to do is dress up with a shiny shirt. So that's all it takes.
It looking tight, I gotta say. I was thinking, you're looking tight in terms of your outerwear. There is a story. There's always a story behind these things.
Oh, yeah. If I could turn my brain off once in a while, I bet that would be pretty relaxing. And when I meditate, I can, but most of the time.
It'd be more relaxing for the people around me if I could do that. I generally am okay with it myself most of the time, but I hear what you're saying.
Right on. I want to go to Sagaga 2023, Milestones in Teacher Education. Looking back, looking forward. And this is the final article that I took a look at. And this author's quote that I loved is, "Anniversaries are occasions for reflection." And that's what we're doing, right? The 100th has got to be an anniversary. And it's also the purpose of this paper. So this author tied that all in so nicely. I really enjoyed it. And then they invented a word.
And I was impressed with the word that's being invented here, I got to say.
I am so impressed by people that have the gumption to invent words. I had a friend of mine invent a word one time, and it was so good. Anyway, with the universitization, teacher education has found itself in a dilemma between two equally important functions: the traditional function of educating future teachers and the new academic, especially research function. And this article, I've talked about this concept so many times. So many times have I banged my head against the wall with, are we training future researchers or are we training teaching professionals? Which is it? Where are we going with that? So to come up with universalization is just wonderful. I'm just so excited to find that. And when it's all the way anniversaries and for reflection, I thought that was so good. I thought that encapsulated the spirit that I wanted to bring to this 100th episode.
Completely. You have to sort of look at it too, just in terms of the tension a bit, where teachers occupy this kind of parallel space between sort of a trade and a knowledge-based profession, right? And so there's people who gravitate towards the research kind of area of the enterprise, and then people who are more sort of practice oriented. I think, like, just based on the scope that I've seen of a lot of advertisements to work in these teacher education programs, you're not going to get very far in most of them without practical K to 12 education experience. But then similarly, they also expect a certain amount of publication and research. And that's where it's like, okay, as you say, Doug, what are you looking for here? Because if somebody's completely immersed in working in a teaching kind of field, then where are they going to have the time or space within their profession or within their life to do these other things within the publication and research? I applied actually when I was working at Thompson Rivers University. I was working for the open learning and innovation sort of area, and I had an interview. I was called in to interview for a faculty of education role, working as an education prof. And what I was told after the interview was over by somebody who was kind of sympathetic to me, she was like, "You were great on the experience part, but you didn't have enough publications. We had to go with somebody else who had more
Yeah.
in terms of a publishing profile and agenda behind them." And I didn't really take it bad. I'm just like, okay, that's kind of how it goes. But again, that maybe kind of speaks to where this reference is coming from. I don't know, Doug, if you've ever had any kind of experiences like that or if that resonates for you in any way.
Oh yeah, for sure. One thing I would add to your list is artist. I think that teaching is an art. I think there's very procedural things, and I think there's a lot of process. I get all that. And I think there's an art form to it because some people just flow through it and it enriches their soul, and other people struggle through it and it crushes them. So I think there's that navigation component to it as well that really goes along with things.
Absolutely.
For me, I have applied for jobs and they're like, wow, your resume is 4 times longer than anybody else's. So I have the opposite problem. I have so many publications that they only really matter in post-secondary, in teaching positions, like in admin positions and in other fields that aren't post-secondary. They're like, whoa, this guy's a researcher. So it's to the point where I have applied for jobs in the past. I haven't applied for a job in a long time now, thank goodness, but I've applied for jobs and left all that off. And my resume is still that big. So it's just one of those things, right? If I could get a chance to teach a little bit, like this is where I put all my teaching energy into this endeavor, which is why I love it so much. But I'd love to be in front of a classroom for a couple hours a week, but not more than that. Like I'm not interested in going back to 35 hours a week of teaching. That would burn me out.
There's a lot to be said for being involved in a way that is enriching to you personally and professionally, and in ways then that will spin out to your students or your learners or whoever you're interacting with. It seems like one of the things that we saddle teachers with, particularly in K to 12, but also in post secondary, is with a lot more teaching than is probably sustainable in terms of energy, in terms of quality. Or I have a colleague who works in a health sciences unit in Ontario. She teaches qualitative research methods to health science students, which is a bit of a disjuncture for her sometimes. But she has, like, it's kind of the typical Toronto area commuter university where these lower level undergraduate courses have over 100 students in them, and her area is not something that you can meaningfully kind of assess just with, multiple choice, true and false kind of questions on midterms and final exams. You actually have to get them to write. You actually have to get them to do things like construct an argument in written form. And when you try and scale that out to over 100 undergraduate students, even with teaching assistants, the marking part of it can eat you alive, as well as trying to bring quality to the teaching.
Oh, yeah.
And then, because she's in a university setting, she also has an expectation of carrying out research. Otherwise, she won't be professionally viable, right? So it kind of speaks, I guess, a bit to that quote as well in its own way.
And that's what I love about what we've done here for the last 4 seasons. We've had control of it, and I know our schedule can be erratic because life happens, right? I always see this as enriching our lives.
Very much so.
Not a drudgery to, I got to go do the notes kind of thing. It's always, what cool thing do we get to explore? What cool thing do we get to talk about? What crazy spin? Or like for me, I put the notes together and then you come up with some stuff and I'm like, oh man, I never thought about that. Okay, I got to go re-engage because that is such a cool way of looking at it that I never looked at before. So I enjoy the back and forth of all of it.
Well, exactly so. And I feel exactly the same way when these notes come in and I figure out, okay, this is what the conversation is going to be about. It's like now I get to do my part and it sort of sets me off on my separate processes, searching for images, putting together the WordPress press post, kind of writing my own reflections to go with a topic, making a musical selection and whatnot. It's just that whole thing adds so much for me in a whole lot of ways that, again, for creative energy and sort of directing something that hopefully other people are going to find enjoyable. I mean, again, we didn't really go into analytics at all with this episode, nor would we necessarily, because that's not particularly our interest. But I think because folks, among other things, this is going to be the final episode of season 4. We are going on our spring and summer hiatus after this, but in the spirit of reflection and kind of looking things over, I mean, just even since it took 3 years and 4 seasons just to get like a counter built into the website for me, where tracking people who just visit the website. And we're getting typically in a 30-day period 150 to 200 people, a lot of them unique visitors checking out the website, right, in various ways. So to me, that whole level of engagement is not insignificant, right? It speaks to the significance of the notes, and whether or not it measures like in a full experience of watching the YouTube or listening to the audio all the way through. I mean, I'm not prepared to try and find out how many people are actually pressing play on the audio widget on the website. If you look at things like Spotify or some of these other streaming sites that the audio gets spun out into, the clicks on those are fairly negligible. But yet I get emails, not a huge amount of them, but people requesting to be interviewed or saying, I mean, unless it's all just AI generated slop coming in through these emails, which is possible, but unlikely. There are people who are actually listening to what we're talking about and thinking about it and having some kind of thoughtful response. So to me, that is worth it. That makes it more than just a conversation with my colleague, Dr. Doug, which I'd be more than happy to have anyway. So.
And I love some of the highlights of our conversations that haven't been recorded. Like early on, every episode, we were naming the podcast and we were doing the territorial acknowledgement. And then there was one episode where it's like, okay, we're 38 minutes in and we haven't said we're the Ed Not Tech podcast yet. What can we do to... And then presto, here's the titles. And we recorded the territorial acknowledgements. And it was just those little incremental changes that somebody from the outside, like if they're listening to episode 97 or 100 for the first time, they're like, oh, okay, isn't that good? But I went back and listened to some of the early ones. And it's like, oh, yeah, we changed that. Oh, yeah, we changed that. Oh, yeah, we changed that. Because I remember how excited I was creating the logo. It was the first time
that was a very significant chapter within the development of this show, because it's spread out over a few episodes where you sort of describe some of your efforts, and you
Yeah.
were, as I recall, right? And so by the time it actually became ready, as we've come to know it and appreciate it, it kind of took on its own little lesson in innovation and iteration, right? And how to use these somewhat emergent generative AI tools. Now it's kind of, we've kind of hit peak I would say. So it's not quite as amazing or whatever from a technology standpoint to be able to do this. But back in 2022, 2023, yeah, it was. And the fact that you've now come around with a much more detailed, visually rich, layered image, such as we have at the beginning of these notes, that to me is pretty impressive beyond and above the capabilities of contemporary AI.
One other thing I really love about this whole endeavor that you and I are putting together is the reaction times. It's when ChatGPT first came out, it was like November 2023 or November 2022, whatever it was. It was the interface finally worked, and it was easy. And we did an episode like January 6th the next year on using generative AI and what it was and what it was going to do. And I've had people, some of my colleagues at other institutions were like, wow, you get to react so quickly. So it was 6 weeks later, and we've already done some work on it, and we're reflecting on it, and we're talking about it. If we were going to go typical publishing, right, we'd write the article, it would live in limbo for 18 months at some journal, or we'd write the article and we'd have to wait till the conference 6 to 8 to 9 months later, or maybe we could teach it in a class, but it wouldn't have been in the syllabus. That's for darn sure, because the syllabi have to get done at the beginning of the semester and all the rest of it. So the fact that we have the freedom and we've jumped on things so early, and now I know you have more in-depth experience with using generative AI with students than I do, but all my stuff is secondhand. But it's just the opportunity, and I really appreciate the fact that most of the time you just say, yeah, go do your thing, go find whatever you want. We'll talk about that. It's not too often that you say, I would like to talk about X or Y, and of course I'd go do that. But so I'm appreciating reflecting back on the reactiveness and you just giving me that sort of free reign to do that. So thank you.
Well, I would simply say that I really have come to appreciate our process. And once I get some pretty cool references and pretty cool beginnings of something, then being able to come up with a media format that manifests that in a way which is accessible and compelling and in keeping with my own kind of personal aesthetic, my own personal ethos. Like, for instance, the punk rock imagery and iconography and theming it with music and everything. I mean, I've had this whole DIY artist kind of sensibility. It's something I've gravitated towards since I was 12 or 13 years old in terms of my own cultural engagement and the people I was hanging out with and things that I was doing in whatever kind of way. So the indie and DIY arts and aesthetic and scenes and everything else have just really been a formative part of my life since I was a kid. And for me, having this kind of format to really take that into a new kind of area, a new kind of environment in its own terms, that's just something I greatly appreciate. And the fact that we get to do it with these awesome references and with the benefit of X number of years of experience or decades of experience in a pretty fundamental area, right? Education in various ways in various sectors. I just love the fact that it takes these things that have been important to me over the years and turns them into something accessible and forward looking and hopefully broadly inclusive that other people can kind of tap into in their own way somehow out there.
Right on. So I'm enjoying the celebration, to be honest. The
Definitely.
celebration and the reflection of looking back. And I know we did an episode at some point talking about celebrating success in education, and I think we've done that here.
Definitely.
So I'm looking at the time saying, hey, I have thrown a bunch of digital clutter in here for a bunch of images. And for the most part, I took, again, it's another AI tool, but it was an AI marketing tool. I fed them our website and said, build us a marketing campaign. And a lot of the stuff was the marketing campaign. So if anybody wants to go take a look at the website and look at these images, this is what AI thinks is the way we should manage our marketing. But I'm wondering, do you have any particular ones you want to take a look at or talk about?
Well, I like these. I think this is neat, and I appreciate the fact that you've contextualized them as such. The one here that kind of jumps out at me out of all of them, I mean, they look neat. I gotta say, the algorithm and your direction of the algorithm in this particular way kind of tickles me. I just think it's kind of neat. I like the image that was sort of created here. I kind of got the bottom text part of it chopped out just a bit, whether it's through the rendering or whatever. But the research over buzzwords, real education is built on human-centric experience, not just the latest software rollout. If that's what the technology thinks that we're saying about technology, then okay, I think that is something I can live with. And the only reason I say that the rendering is just a bit off is in the document I'm seeing kind of the rollout part is not quite rendered fully on the page, but
okay.
That in itself is kind of charming. And what I really like about that, one of the things that drew me to that particular image in the first place is that it grabbed a GIF, a GIF from
Yes.
a video by the rock band The Replacements. And the Replacements are my favorite band of all time for many, many reasons. I won't go into them too much here, but they were kind of famous for self-sabotage and chaos during their run during the 80s and early 90s. And the GIF that's there is a little still from one of their videos where the video is just a camera watching a guy listen to the record of the song that's being played in the video. And then at the end of it, the guy gets up and kicks the record player over. And yeah, to me, that just kind of exemplifies and embodies a lot of what I kind of enjoy about our approach to the show, as well as being a shout out to probably what I consider the greatest rock and roll band to come out of the United States during the 80s and 90s. So,
right on. And thank you for that context, because I had no clue. That's if it didn't have fiddle music in it, like Celtic fiddle music, I don't know a lot. So anyway, so for listeners, there's definitely some images there that I've enjoyed. The one I like the best is the couple months ago there was this create a blister pack AI toy of yourself or somebody else or whatever.
Totally.
And I did that for the Ed Non-Tech podcast to see. And one was the image. So it looks like one of those 1978 Star Wars toys should be in there. So they've got the blister pack, but they've got no character. The little EnT isn't in there. And their catchphrase is curiosity is unboxable. And I think that's something that we've spent a lot of time being curious about and investigating and taking a look at and talking about. So I really enjoyed that graphic.
Very much so. And just the fact that you're kind of putting it in the terminology of the Star Wars 1970 toys. I mean, we are both within the context of Generation X. And so our fellow Gen X people who grew up or came of age 1970s, early 1980s, hopefully that relates for you. Hopefully that resonates. It's cool in and of itself, is what I say. And curiosity is unboxable. So what's the name of the application was that a Chat GPT function that kind of scraped this stuff and put it together in this kind of way, Doug?
Yeah, it is. Yep. It's all the same. It's all from the same. I mess around with a bunch of different ones, but most of them end up, here's 2 or 3 things, and now you owe us money, and I'm not paying.
Right.
I'm just not. I am trying to leverage it for my use for myself. And I don't do very much of it because I understand the environmental impacts. And the impacts
nevertheless,
stuff, so.
Experimentation and taking the results and documenting it is inherently part of what this show is about. And whatever you want to take away from that, I think has value, right? So,
and I treat it as play, and play is so vitally
so
important to our lives. So I have 3 things left.
Outstanding.
I have the word, question, and phrases of the podcast. And what's funny is when we started, we didn't have any of those. We were looking at takeaways. It was the takeaways. What can we do to get people to get more engaged and more involved? And to be honest, it's morphed again because it used to be phrase of the podcast. I cannot remember the last episode that we had one phrase.
Right.
It is so we continually morph and adjust and modify. Again, we're like the fungus. That's where we're growing and expanding. So word of the podcast is celebration because we got to 100. Wow. And just for listeners, you're not going to believe what episode 101 is. You're going to have to come back in September to find out. That's how they do it, right? That's how marketing works.
We're previewing it in advance. Quite right. Quite right. Leave them wanting more.
That's it. Questions of the podcast. There's 2 because these questions were both brought up in episode number 1. Because I just went back and re-listened to episode number 1. It's been a while. And it was, what are we doing? Because it doesn't come across well. Like, we need to figure out more emotional cues so people know what are we doing is one thing, but what are we doing, right? We need to figure out how to express those emotions better, like whatever, emojis or emoticons or something. And
awesome.
The other one is, why are we using technology so much in education? That was basically the first question in the first episode. And we're still there 100 episodes later asking the same darn question.
Very much so.
Had some answers, but okay. Phrases of the podcast. There's 3. One is it spread like a fungus because that just made me laugh. I did not have that planned.
That was a good one. That was an excellent contribution, Doug.
And another excellent contribution is we remain with widespread hope. And that was yours, right? We remain with widespread hope because
it's important.
It is. And the last is being good to yourself. I'm not sure which of us said that, but it was said, and I think this is being good to ourselves. I think doing this helps. And I think it's also helping other people. So good on us. If I had the mobility to move my arm enough to pat myself on the back, I would for 4 seasons of good work.
Totally.
So that's what I've got.
That's what we've got.
Even
Folks,
better.
it's been a pleasure. I have enjoyed this immensely, this episode, and it's always a good time. And honestly, I'm already looking forward to when we get started again in September or thereabouts. Behind the scenes, we'll be maybe looking at some analytics, maybe possibly moving a book proposal forward, looking at some ways to kind of get this out in various other formats and kind of manners. But fundamentally, I really appreciate and enjoy what we're doing here. It's always been a pleasure. This 4th season, I think, has been, it just keeps getting better. I just keep enjoying it more and more and have greater interest in it even than when we first started, probably because it keeps sort of showing itself to be valuable. So thanks for everything, Doug. I think this has been great.
Yeah, and I hope you like that last image I dropped at the bottom that I created with the
100%.
100 candles.
100%.
Perfect.
It's outstanding. And folks, you definitely are going to want to check out the website, perhaps even more than at any other point for this one. So do yourself a favor.
Bye for now, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Thanks a lot for checking it out, and bye for now.